to stop eating and throwing up. How is it so hard?
In today's video, I'm going to provide some comments about booze bulimia recovery. Don't forget to subscribe and check out my resources below. If you want to speak with me, there is also a link in the box. Today, I am talking about booze bulimia recovery. I saw this video not too long ago, and there's a lot of good points. The name of the channel is Boo, but I think her name is Ingrid, and she lives up in British Columbia, Canada. And when she made this video about 2.5 years ago, she was 19, so she's a little older now. And if I'm not mistaken, she's still making videos. I really like her honesty, and she brings up so many good points in such a short video. Again, the point of this video is not to criticize somebody's recovery, it's not to judge somebody's recovery, it is only to provide insight and commentary on eating disorders and recovery. Okay, let's get to it.
Hey.
How are you?
A lot of reasons, but I don't think any of them are really that great.
So Boo, or Ingrid, is talking about reasons for recovery. I think it's really important at the beginning to establish reasons. What is your mission? Where do you want to go? And where are you now? She says she doesn't have any good reasons, but to me, any reason to recover is a good reason. I don't care what it is. Just because it's not about health, just because it's not about looking better, just because it's I don't want to die, doesn't mean it's not a good reason. Any reason in the world is a good reason to stop binging and purging. Nonetheless, it is a good idea to have some clarity on why it is that you want to quit. What is it that you really want? Clearly, you don't want to be stuck in this binge purge cycle forever, so what are you going to do to replace it?
The thing with purging and laxative abuse and whatever is that you get those instances where you think you're gonna die, and then you're scared, and then you wake up the next day, you do it again, and you're desensitized to it, and then you just stop caring.
Something that is so abnormal and destructive like binging and purging should never seem normal. But when it seems normal and you become desensitized to it, that's really bad. It's really easy to say something like, it's not that big of a deal, so I'm not going to take action today. But at least Ingrid understands that she has become desensitized to it, but now I think she's realizing the true cost of this.
And of course, it's like, it doesn't matter why you stop. It just matters that you stop, right? Well,
yes and no. Ultimately, all that matters is that you stopped. If you have good reasons for recovery, your recovery is going to be much more successful. If you have really undefined reasons and you're not sure why you're recovering, it's really easy to go back and to have a relapse.
The way that people who don't have eating disorders or experience with them.
There's a lot of misunderstanding about EDs. That's one of the reasons why I created this channel. People without them look at binging and purging and laxative abuse as, why would you do that? Why would anybody want to do that? But when you're enmeshed in that cycle and it seems so significant to you and it has meaning to you and it's like the one thing that you have control over, it's really easy to engage in these behaviors. What seemed abnormal at one point in your life seems routine and normal. Saying things like, it's all in your head, you don't look sick enough, what's wrong with you, these don't help.
I mean, what can you really expect people to think?
It's easy to get mad at people who have really no understanding of EDs. There's just not a lot of awareness around them. It's just a young girl's syndrome, and then they recover at some point, although that's not always true.
And especially if the person isn't especially thin or sick looking.
This is one more reason why EDs can seem so isolating. Nobody really understands it. Why don't you just eat and eat until you're full, and then when you get hungry again, eat again. But you don't look sick, you don't look that thin. People without EDs would say something like this, well, you look okay, what's the problem? You don't know who has an ED and who doesn't. Just because somebody's obese or really thin doesn't necessarily mean they have an ED, so try not to judge. And then what is sick enough? What do you mean sick enough? If you have this problem and it's causing you a lot of distress and it's a lot of anxiety and you're thinking about it all the time and you know it's wrong, you probably need intervention. Don't wait until you're sick enough to get treatment. I'm not saying that's what Ingrid is doing. So I feel bad for Ingrid because it doesn't seem like anybody around her, her friends or family, understand what she's going through.
For me, it causes way more problems than it was worth.
A simple cost-benefit analysis is a good way to start your recovery. Why am I doing this? What is the benefit? Usually the benefit is escape, entertainment, It could be to numb out. It could be to deal with some uncomfortable emotions. It could be for a variety of things. And somewhere along the line, we decided that this cycle, binging, purging, was the most important thing, and we were willing to pay a really high price for that. Later in the video, she talked about her studies and how her bulimia is interfering with her studies at school. That she would jeopardize her higher education for this cycle shows you how appealing and alluring the whole cycle is. That she would jeopardize her higher education for bulimia goes to show you how alluring bulimia and other eating disorders can be. But it seems like she is finally recognizing the true price of this ED. It's not just the time, it's not just the money, it's everything that's good in life.
When my dad found out that I was vomiting, he just told me to not run the shower during, because he said something along the lines of throw up in a bucket or something so you don't waste water. And I was just like, seriously?
I laughed out loud when I first heard this. I feel bad for her. That the most that her family could tell her is, if you're going to purge, do it in a bucket. When she says, seriously, I totally empathize with her. There's not much more to say about that. That's just really bad advice.
I got so tired of gaining weight from binging.
Weight gain is one motivation for recovery, and it's not necessarily a bad motivation. When you don't recognize yourself, when you don't feel like you're in the same body, when you don't like what you see, when you start seeing the effects of this behavior, it's really easy to be distraught, to be in despair. It's easy to blame yourself, and you look at yourself and you don't feel confident, you don't feel proud, and you want to start making changes. Will the weight gain be enough for Ingrid to make those changes? We'll have to watch future videos. Remember, this was filmed in August of 2018, and now it's January of 21, so things have changed, I hope.
And am I lapsing into other bad behaviors? Maybe.
One thing you should expect in recovery is if you start to take control of what you eat, you might find a loss of control in other areas of your life. It's like squeezing two ends of a balloon. You squeeze this side gets bigger. And what happens is this lack of self-control seeps into other areas of your life. Maybe you start binge watching movies or YouTube, or maybe you're always looking at your phone. Maybe you lack self-discipline and focus at school. It's one more cost to an eating disorder. It starts to affect every aspect of your life.
And I'm also tired of thinking of myself as a bulimic or person with an eating disorder. I just want to be.
Before you recover, one thing you should do is establish an identity goal. What is your identity? Who do you want to be? It works even better if you say it in the present tense, like I am a confident eater, or I am an intuitive eater, or I am a self-disciplined focused person. When your behavior doesn't match your stated identity, it starts to cause cognitive dissonance. This dissonance might or might not be enough to create the changes that you want to see. What is your identity? Let me know below. But it seems here that Ingrid has an identity crisis. It's like her eating disorder has become her identity. She is a bulimic.
I have to stop eating and throwing up. How is it so hard? It sounds so simple to just stop.
Yes, why is it so hard? It's so simple. Just stop eating. Eat until you're full, and then wait until you're hungry again, and voila, recovery. Too bad it's not so simple. Changing your brain, changing priorities, changing habits, changing your identity, decreasing that desire, all of those take a while. Not years, but you're looking at months. And you can't just snap your fingers and expect that change. But it's so frustrating. I remember thinking to myself so many times during those years, why can't I just stop? Why can't I just stop? Why can't I just stop? What is so hard about this? But the cycle becomes this obsession. You put so much emphasis on it, you give it so much attention, and what's that old saying? What you focus on expands? In this case, it's kind of true. And you can't pretend that it's not there. You can't pretend that the desire isn't there. You can't pretend that the idea isn't there. It's there. This frustration is quite normal during the recovery process.
And everyone tells me, just f***ing stop, Ingrid.
Yes, more great advice from people who don't understand EDs. Just stop. It's all in your head. Get out of your head. In fact, it only makes a disordered eater feel worse because it seems so simple and other people don't have this problem. And you start to think, why me? Why am I the only one in this room who can't eat right? It's frustrating, and it starts to impact your self-confidence. Eating disorders are more than a lack of control and a lack of self-discipline. It doesn't say anything about you. It's amoral. It is. It doesn't mean you have a broken brain. It just means that you've made a series of decisions over time that have led you to this point. You can't take those decisions back, but what you can do is change the way you make decisions in the future. You can change your priorities. You can change what your desires are. You can change your identity. There's so much within your control at this point. Even at the bottom of your ED, there's a lot that you can control.
Another horrible thing is that binging and purging represents like chaos and a lack of control, a lack of discipline.
In one way, it is a loss of self-control, but there's a lot more to it than that. Self-control is a practice. It's something that you can acquire. It's something that you can regain. The solution to bulimia isn't just self-control.
I was anorexic before I was bulimic. It's a long story with...
I was anorexic before I was bulimic, as is the case with so many bulimics. Usually it starts with anorexia or orthorexia and then it progresses to bulimia. Although, not always. Everybody has a different story. A lot of times anorexia resolves itself, but you go from anorexia to bulimia, and now you have a whole new problem.
That's what counts. Small steps. Small improvements. We'll get there eventually.
That's a good attitude. Ingrid isn't going to recover in one day, as she already knows now. Making small steps, making small improvements, finding better ways to do things, just making one better decision each day. What if you made one better decision each day for 6 months? That's a lot of improvement. This is what's known as the compound effect, which is one of my favorite books, by the way. If you make small changes over a long period of time, you are creating massive changes. If you put $100 in an index fund, in 30 years, it'll be several $1,000s. That's the power of compound interest. So I like that she's emphasizing small steps here. She's not looking for a massive breakthrough. She's not looking to recover in one day. That should never be your attitude.
Recovery is not always as pretty as they make it seem on Instagram.
No, it's not. Nothing is as pretty as you see it on Instagram. Recovery is like this, okay? Peaks and valleys, peaks and valleys. You fall down, you get up. Sometimes it's frustrating. Sometimes you're making a lot of progress. Sometimes you're not. Sometimes you're moving forward. Sometimes you're moving backwards. It's not always glamorous and it's not always fun, but it is necessary. Hope you found this video educational and entertaining. Don't forget to subscribe and check out my resources below. If you liked this video, I'm sure you'll like one of the other videos that you see on the screen. Click one of them and I'll see you there. And as always, eat the way you're designed to.